かごに花いっぱい月影が戸を叩く人形たちが目を覚ます影の夜 Palace of the princess deeply dreaming Midnight minuet as she is sleeping
Hey everyone, it's Jonathan and welcome back to Christmas in July. Today Nicki and Mark are back to talk about Sanrio's Nutcracker Fantasy once again, but this time we're talking about the original uncut Japanese version of the movie. This version is not only so much longer than the American version, it's cut together with music in ways where, even if they hadn't cut entire scenes, at times it still feels like a completely different movie. I don't know about you guys, but I think I liked the Japanese version better than the American version.
Oh yeah, I would agree. It felt more complete.
Yeah, and it had, like, it was, technically was the same movie, but it just felt like a totally different movie. I think I said last time, like, I started watching the beginning, and, like, I was instantly so much more hooked from the beginning of this one than the American version.
The beginning is definitely like scarier with the ragman and all
Yes, and I loved that
Yeah.
about it. But, like, the American version, like, for scenes like this, it's not like they cut out a lot of it, but they cut out, like, you wouldn't think it, but seconds matter. And just a few seconds here and there change the whole feeling of something. And the beginning is, like, the best example of that. Because, like, when the ragman is, like, sneaking into that kid's bedroom, they cut out just enough of that it seems more silly almost in the American version. Like, I'm sure there's kids who would have nightmares because, like, the ragman is creepy. But, like, the way they animated the kid changing into a mouse, like, he's, like, thrashing around, and that's not in the American version.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if that was in or not.
No.
That did stand out, yeah.
Yeah, like, they cut straight from him, like, getting touched by the ragman's whatever that magically turned him into a mouse on the ground. But in the Japanese version, he, like, thrashes around and falls off the bed before becoming a mouse.
I would say too the fact, and I guess this is more of a personal thing, but like I'm very much a subtitle person over a dubbed thing. Even though it, because with a lot of YouTube dubs, the audio isn't necessarily going to match up perfectly anyway. But there's just something about the dialogue, like matching the mouths, and you're seeing. Not that you're never going to get a completely accurate subtitling of what's going on, but they're not changing the story to match it. They're just going with what's there and they're translating it accordingly.
Yeah. It's like more authentic.
Yeah, it is. Like even silly little things like the Queen of Time being called the Gypsy Fortune Teller. It's more. It makes sense within the context of what's going on.
Yeah, I felt like that and a few other things just made more sense in the Japanese version. Like, this still was a fantastical, dream-like movie because it is a dream, basically. Like, it toes the line just like the American version, but I don't know, it just made more sense in the Japanese version.
Yeah, like when they, in the American version, all the people who are trying to cure the princess, they call them, like, the wise men or something.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, in this version, they called them, like, what was it, like,
famous people.
Like famous people or something that just made a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
It was like an international council or something.
It's
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to hear the rap voices, especially the way that they played those, that's the original, and artist intent is always going to be a little different from where they start to where they end up. But the rats with the voices that they had in this were so much more sinister. They were genuinely kind of creepy.
Yeah. In the American version, a lot of what mice in the American version, because they changed them from rats to mice when they did it American, they felt cartoony, like sillier. Like, they weren't ever too much of a threat. Like, they were a threat, but you didn't really get a sense that they were, like, going to be that dangerous for most of it.
Or menacing.
Yeah.
But they definitely were in the Japanese version. They still had moments of cartooniness, especially, like, in the battle. But even then, the battle, I mean, I want to go in order, but, like, the battle, it was a lot more drawn out in the Japanese version.
Oh yeah. There was whole scenes of the fighting and the wind-up dolls and all that.
Yeah.
And again, not to go out of order, but something that stood out to me too was after the battle when Franz turns into a Nutcracker and she's trying to figure out how to cure him. We see what's the name, the mouse child of the
I,
two-headed
I
queen.
wrote it down because it's different in the Japanese version.
Yeah, we see him multiple times following her.
Shunaruru instead of Gar.
Okay, there we go. We see him following her a couple times. If I remember well,
More
in the
than
American,
in the American
yeah, in the
version.
American version, I think we only see him like after she meets the Riddler, the Riddling guy.
You might see him once before, but he's so much more present
Yeah.
in the Japanese version.
Very much.
Okay. In the American one, it almost felt like, oh yeah, we forgot about him. Here we go.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I went through the whole thing. I was going back and forth between the two versions because I wanted to like make note of all the changes. And like I knew there was going to be differences, but I didn't realize just how different it was going to feel. Because like I knew I had seen some things about like whole sequences that had been cut, and I figured that that was where the bulk of the changes were going to be. Like they cut out dance sequences. So
The
like
live action parts, yeah.
yeah, I knew those were going to be gone, and I guess I just figured that that was going to be why it was 20 minutes longer. But it wasn't just that. It was like there was in the scenes, like the scenes were the same, but
Just more of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
they shaved off seconds here and there, and you wouldn't think it, but seconds make a huge difference in something like this.
Oh, they do. Like you say, with the kid at the open being turned into the mouse or the rat, you do lose the urgency of that moment. You do
Mhm.
lose that. And I'm sure for American audiences they went, well, kids are going to be scared by this. We need to tone it down a bit.
I loved the Japanese version. I loved how ominous it was.
Oh
The
yeah.
music was different too, and they didn't have the voiceover of the adult Clara looking back on this time in her life. So this is just the story playing out instead of a narrator telling you what's happening.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, for whatever reason, not having her there at the beginning made this feel so much more dark because she was like narrating the different things happening, and it was longer. The music was different. Sometimes there was no music. They just went off the sound effects, and I really liked that. Yeah, the whole beginning was just so much better in the Japanese version.
Well, it's just like when you have any, like the original, and for the most part, in any scenario, the original version of any movie is going to be better
Mhm.
than a remake. Not all cases, but
Hmm.
because you've got that, especially where you're taking the original thing and making tiny changes to it. Or like How to Train Your Dragon, or the cartoon versus the live action. The one thing that I've heard with that is that it's basically shot for shot. What was the point of making it live action when you had the commercial or the cartoon version and it's perfectly serviceable?
Anytime someone asks that, I hear in my head ABBA's "Money, Money, Money."
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
What I hear is from Tom and Jerry the movie where the guy's like, "We've got to have money," but not many people know that one.
One change that they made, I don't know what the deal with this change was. Like in the American version, she lives with her Aunt Gerda, but in this version, she calls her nurse or nursey.
Yeah, it's like she's not related to her. It seems more like a caretaker of some sort.
Yeah,
Yeah, which
a
I
nanny, I suppose.
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know where that.
got like Secret Garden vibes from that.
I mean, it's not. It doesn't make a huge difference in the story itself. It was just an interesting change.
Maybe American audiences prefer if it's some aunt she's staying with.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like with Harry Potter, you had the Sorcerer's Stone versus the Philosopher's Stone. It's just kind of an understanding of what the language is.
Americans
suppose.
don't know philosophy.
No.
We like magic.
One thing I found interesting, and I think we talked about this the last time, and maybe it was there and I didn't notice it, or maybe it was one of those pieces that was cut. But when she's laying in bed in the middle of the first song that they're doing, like it gets all kind of like diamondy and sparkly around the outsides of the screen. I'm pretty sure that's when she goes into kind of the dream sequence.
Probably. Some of that, there are scenes that, like, I don't know about that one specifically, but there are multiple times where something similar to that happens in the Japanese version, and then I went back to the American version, and it was not there. They changed how the different transitions happened. So that could have been one of them.
Right.
I'm picturing Jonathan with 2 different TVs on at the same time, watching them. Very.
I have done that before. I didn't for this one. I was going between 2 windows on my laptop, but like when I did an episode on Your Name, I had
Nice.
the DVD on the TV, and then I had the Japanese version on my laptop, and I was going back and forth between the TV and the laptop.
Nice.
I felt the same way with this episode as I did when I was doing Your Name, because like I was really interested in the differences, and like the differences in this one were a lot more stark than in Your Name.
Mm-hmm.
Your Name, they did a very good job with Your Name.
Yeah.
Like there were differences, but not huge.
Mm-hmm.
This one, they were kind of big in this one. Like her cousin, we mentioned it last time. Fritz is not her cousin in the American version.
Yeah, he's just a guy.
He is her cousin in this version.
Right.
They don't even say who he is. He's just a guy.
Yeah.
Some random guy.
I would imagine too. You kind of get the, and I being that this is 18th century kind of leaning. You would have oftentimes where you would marry like a third or fourth cousin to kind of and it was clearly a more wealthy estate that they were living on. So I'm sure that the idea of cousins in that respect, is was more accepted based on the fact that the Nutcracker was done back in the 18th century.
Probably.
And even culturally too. So like
Yeah.
We're
getting a Japanese take on what was it, German?
Yeah.
German, what was it, Nutcracker?
Yeah.
So yeah, we had an American reimagining of a Japanese version of a German story, and this is just a Japanese take on a German story. So
it's like a game of telephone played out between cultures and decades.
And no one understands what the other people are saying.
I think the main difference with the scenes with her talking about Fritz is that I feel like in this version she's more into him than in the American version.
Oh, because I feel that they give more about her backstory too. Like she mentions, like, she hasn't seen him in 3 or 5 years or whatever.
I think she said 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel the first one didn't really mention many details. We just knew this guy was named Fritz, and she liked him, and that's pretty much it. Mm-hmm. Here we kind of get some level of a background, a history.
Yeah. And then after this, for a while, they play out mostly the same, like through Uncle Drosselmeyer's visit. It all kind of happens very similar to the American version.
Even the tick-tock was kind of similar.
The dialogue is different, but the intent of the scenes feels about the same. I think some of them were just like a few seconds longer, like the rat attack. I think there's like a couple scenes cut and a few seconds shaved off here and there. I feel like it makes the Japanese version just feel more dramatic and more cinematic.
Well, it's like anything, it's edited a certain way because it was meant to convey a certain thing, and that certainly, you do get it with this, there's no doubt. Definitely.
And then another change here in the dialogue is that after the rat attack happens, Nursey, or Aunt Gerda,
whoever you choose,
whoever you want it to be, I guess, in both versions, she tries to play this off as if Clara just had a dream. But in the Japanese version, she says the Nutcracker part was a dream as well. Like, she says that Uncle Drosselmeyer never had a Nutcracker. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And that Clara was asleep before they went downstairs. So they're really playing up what is and is not reality in this version. Like, according to the nurse or aunt, there is no Nutcracker in the real life scenario.
I missed that.
And then after this, it plays out about the same, but feels different, with Clara having a headache and her aunt/nurse sending for the doctor. And the way they do this just feels, I don't know, it just feels so different because there's no narration. And then you've got Clara going out of her room and looking over the balcony, but it just takes so much longer. Like, they cut off a lot of just her looking out. Like, it's so quiet. Like, the camera pans around her more than just the one time in the American version. I really liked that scene in the Japanese version, but it goes by so quick in the American version. And then the scene after she goes downstairs, following who she thinks is Uncle Drosselmeyer. Like, she sees him before going into the clock. And I don't think you see anybody in the American version. And then she also has, like, visions of multiple ragmen appearing around her as she's, like, following potentially Uncle Drosselmeyer deeper into the clock. And then the first huge change is that all of this kind of fades away to a rose, and then out of the rose appears a live-action ballet dancer.
Yeah, that's the way the first live action part is, right?
Yeah, none of this is in the American version.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess I can see why they would cut this, because it grinds the story to a halt. I do like this scene, though. Like, I like the dancing parts, but I do like stuff like this anyway. Like, all of the stuff that they cut out for the American version, I can see why they cut it out. I just really like it.
Kind of like how I felt about Nutcracker in the Four Realms. Like I said, I actually like that movie compared to others, but the part, like the dance part, was the least worst part for me. That took it out for me.
That was like my favorite part of that movie.
Yeah, so we have different tastes.
That's
And
good,
also,
though.
you actually know what the story's about. I had no idea. Like, oh, there's a Morgan Freeman in this. This has to be canon.
I mean, as long as someone bites the nut, we're really okay.
See, even that, I didn't even know that part.
I didn't either.
It's not something that they usually put into movies. In at least the ones that I've seen. Like, I haven't seen a ton of adaptations yet, but that's not something that's usually put into them. I'm assuming that the music during this live action scene is from the ballet. I'm not sure what part it is, because I wanted to go back and like compare to the ballet and figure out what song it was, but I didn't have time. I tried to Shazam it, and that didn't work. It didn't give me anything, which I thought was weird.
Very odd.
But then after the dance sequence, she gets to the Kingdom of the Dolls, which plays out similarly. The dialogue is a bit different, but they explicitly name it the Kingdom of the Dolls, which I don't think they did in the American version.
I was gonna ask, was it called that in the American one? I don't remember.
I don't think so.
Pretty
Like,
sure not.
I noticed, going through it a second time, I noticed that they were talking about them being dolls, but that must have just gone over my head when I watched it the first time, because I didn't think of them as dolls. I thought they were people. I think that happened with a few things, because also I did not, like, I noticed it this time going through, but apparently the princess was changed into a mouse. That did not register with me the first time I watched this, the American version. Like, I remembered them talking about her being changed, but I thought it was just a weird way that they were referring to her being asleep. Fully went over my head that she was a mouse, and I noticed, like, you never actually really get a good look at her because she's in the bed that has, like, the veils around it. And I noticed watching it this time, like, if you look at her profile, it does look kind of mouse-like, but there is no, like, shot of her in the bed without her being obscured by these veils. So it just fully went over my head that she was a mouse.
Yeah, I don't think they mentioned that in the American version.
I'm pretty sure that they did. I remember
some of the
seeing
dialogue
it.
does say that she was changed, but it did not
But
register
the mouse
with me.
part, I mean.
Yeah.
See, now I thought, because there was something about where yeah, I remember them talking about it, and I thought it was weird that they would change her into a mouse and then not have, why would you change her into a mouse if you're not going to let her marry the rat's son or whatever?
Yeah.
But it was in there. But it's one of those things where, because you only ever do see like the silhouette, you don't really get that full visual, probably because she's supposed to be ugly and terrible looking and everything else, so.
I think also in the American one, I don't think we see as much as we do in the Japanese one too of that scene of seeing her in the bed or wherever.
Probably not, because I think there was just little changes throughout these. The way they cut it was different. And the backstory was slightly different too, because you have the king explaining what happened. And
the battle.
The biggest difference that I noticed right away was he was talking about the mice or rats took advantage of their kingdom because most dolls are girls, so they didn't have enough men to protect them.
I remember that too. Doing many men soldiers to fight.
Yeah.
All you have is the wind-up soldiers, and they don't go the distance.
Yeah, they were talking about
once the wine's over.
Yeah. They were like easily knocked over or something.
You could say they've been easily winding down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Da 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 da.
I'm here all night, folks.
And then one of the changes that kind of led me down a weird rabbit hole was in the Japanese version, the queen is named Madame Mouse Lynx,
Mhm.
with the lynx part is like the wildcat. And in the American version, her name is Queen Morphea. And like when I watched the American version, I was like, oh, that's weird that they would change her name. Because like in the book, at least according to my memory, her name was Madame Mouse Rinks with an R, like skating rinks. So when they said Madame Mouse Lynx, I was like, oh, okay. So then why did they change it for the American version? Also, I was questioning why it was Mouse Lynx in the Japanese version, and then I was wondering if it was like a translation error. Because like I don't know where at what step along the way that the subtitles came in, but I was kind of wondering is like and I don't know what the exact like stereotype is, whether it's on their side or our side, like whether they have trouble pronouncing the L and the R or we have trouble hearing the difference in their language.
Yeah, it could
Like
be
with Japanese,
pronunciation
like
thing
that's
too,
the
yeah.
stereotype, like when they want to
Mm.
like do the weird racist accent, they mix up the L and the R sounds.
Yeah.
So I was kind of wondering if that was something with that.
Possibly.
That's probably exactly what it is. If I had to guess.
It could be. But then to make things even weirder, I decided to check my book to make sure that I was actually remembering her name. Because like in my memory and I checked Wikipedia too, her name is Madame Mouse Rinks. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't just invent that. So I checked the book. And in my book, her name is Lady Mouse Rings, like diamond rings. And I was like, what?
Weird.
And I was like, I can't have made up the Rinks version because like I feel like I've heard that and Wikipedia said Rinks. And I actually have 2 copies of this because I've got a giant like illustrated Christmas treasury that has like Christmas stories and poems, stuff that I have or may potentially cover on every version ever. So I got this big book that I could reference, like A Christmas Carol's in there, Washington Irving's Old Christmas. So I figured I would
Nice.
double check that and see what it said because maybe my version, like I didn't know what was going on. Maybe mine was a misprint. But in that version, her name is Lady Mousy Rinks.
Mousy Rex.
Oh, weird.
And
Well,
then I was suddenly remembered something similar happened when I was doing Pinocchio because at one point, I think it was in the Italian version, I was going back and forth between the movie and the book and noticing random, weird, seemingly arbitrary differences in names. And I'm thinking maybe this just comes down to the translators. Like whoever took the German story and translated it into English, because maybe translations are like copyrighted. Like maybe one publishing company does their translation, but another company's not allowed to use that translation. So they have to do it themselves. So maybe at some point, one translation named her Lady Mouse Rings, and another one said Lady Mousy Rinks. I don't know.
Yes, I was
Possibly.
just going to ask if the story was originally German. And
Yes.
yeah, it's a translation thing, so that
Yeah.
sounds exactly like what it could be.
Yeah. So this won't be the first time that comes up because there was more changes later on that I'm wondering if it just comes down to a translation difference. Like whoever translated it decided to go in one direction and somebody else did something different.
Especially translating names from one language to another. There's a lot of like you can transliterate it, and then how you spell that is going to be 2 people can transliterate something this in 2 different ways.
We'll
And then
get there.
there's-
The Candy Kingdom is the same way.
Okay. And then there's some who instead of transliterating, they would like translate what the name means and then
Mhm.
convert that into whatever the language is. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it is something that's just part of translation.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, based on personal experiences too, if you've got one person that says, well, in the context of this sentence, it's coming off as this versus someone else that looks at it and go, well, in context, it comes off as that.
Hmm. But then you also have her son, which in the English version, her son's name is Gar. And like I said, in the Japanese version, his name is Shunururu, Shunururu. Which, like, it's understandable why they would change that for English, but it also kind of cracked me up that in the Japanese version, he's got this long name, and then in English, he's just Gar.
They went from one extreme to the other. One of my favorite parts is when Like he's looking at the picture of the princess and he's like complaining that she's a mouse, and then his mother is like don't worry, after when it's time for you to get married to her, I'm gonna change her back into a human, and then she laughs maniacally, and I was like, is that really an evil thing? You're turning her back to a human? is that where you're laughing?
I mean, it
I'm gonna
depends on
turn
your
her back to
perspective.
hell, I guess. But,
Once I realized that she'd been transformed into a mouse,
yeah,
I assumed that she'd done that for her son.
yeah.
But then you have that conversation, and I'm like, well, then why did you change her to a mouse in the first place?
Yeah, so that's why I thought the evil part would be leave her a mouse, but it's like, no, I'm gonna change her back to how she was. Mwahaha. It's like,
Well, she
okay.
was prettier as a human, apparently.
Well, yeah, I would go along with that.
Well, like I said, in the book, her curse was that she was ugly. Like, I think she even has like a full beard in the book.
Wow.
Like, she's not a mouse, she's just ugly.
Beard or mouse, you gotta take your pick, I guess.
Absolutely.
But anyways, after this, we have the wise men scene.
Yes.
And all of the dialogue for that scene has been altered considerably. Like, a lot of it plays out the same way. There's like bits taken out here and there. Like, the intent of the scene is the same, but like almost nothing that they say is the same. Like, all of the jokes have been like Americanified. Like,
Yeah.
there's like a line making fun of the Chinese Empire because his toys were made in Hong Kong, which that's not in the Japanese version.
And there's no maple syrup in this one.
No.
Yeah, unfortunately. I feel like that's a loss.
Yes. We improved.
And I think I mentioned it last time, but the way that scene happened, and with all the different cultures, it reminded me of the section in the ballet where there's all different music that are based on a bunch of different cultures. Like you have the Chinese dance and the Arabian dance. And it seemed to me like that scene was referencing that part of the ballet, not the book, but they didn't have the music. I was like, well, okay, whatever. But the music was in this version.
Nice.
So the American version cut out all of the music referencing that part of the ballet, which is such a weird change to make. Like, why take out the music that was from the ballet?
Because they were still 10 minutes over and they were trying to find easy places to cut.
I mean, I suppose, because they did shave off seconds here and there, and that would change the timing of the music.
I can tell you from in one part of my job is fitting things into a certain time limit, and it's incredible what like the slivers you will cut off of things to be able
Yeah.
to make them fit. Like it gets down to frames. So I can 100% see someone going, okay, we've got 10 minutes to cut. What's easy to cut? Okay, we can cut out here, but oh, that messes with the music. Okay, well, we're not going to record completely new pieces for this. Just kibosh the whole bit.
Yeah, I suppose.
It's not right, but I would imagine that's probably something that happened.
Mm-hmm. Well, another strange change in this scene, like, I guess it doesn't matter too much, but like you had the weird scene of that guy going around trying to kiss people, talking about like he'd read the ancient texts that pointed to a kiss being the solution to break the spell. But in the Japanese version, this guy is supposed to be the literal prince from Snow White.
Oh, really? I missed that.
That's awesome.
That's what he said. He said his name is Prince Pawn, and he has powerful magic kisses, which are supposedly the solution to like any sleeping curse, I guess.
Nice. And he does it for free.
I'm not sure I believe him.
This was all a ruse to kiss princesses.
Yes.
He's like, give me it. Let me test it out.
I mean,
He also
kind of
has
was.
a weird. He also wants to run a kissing booth.
He didn't need the booth. He just went around just randomly kissing everyone.
That is true.
And another odd change that it makes sense why they cut it from the American version was the knight that was hiccuping. He seemed drunk in the American version, but no, he's explicitly drunk in the Japanese version. And I'm pretty sure he was recommending alcohol as the solution to the curse.
You
It's like, it
know,
works
at
for
least
me.
it would. I was gonna say it. You know, it's at least gonna make it more tolerable.
I think the thing is you have to get everyone else drunk. Then they'll be able
Yes.
to tolerate the situation. But the king will be less worried about his daughter at that point.
At least for a little while.
At least, yeah.
And at this point, a lot of things start changing. In both versions, this scene descends into chaos and Clara goes out into the night for a walk, I guess. In the American version, this is where she meets the cloaked figure voiced by Christopher Lee, who points her to the Queen of Time to get help. But in this version, she refers to the cloaked figure as Granny, and he points her to a fortune teller who can help her out. And I guess he calls her a fortune teller in the American version. I didn't remember that. But he also says that the password to get in to see her is Queen of Time.
Well,
But in the Japanese version, he just says Queen of Spades, and she's literally just a fortune teller.
is he a he? Because I always thought when she called her Granny that she's actually a she.
Yeah, that's true, because she calls him Granny, or she calls the figure Granny.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the voice is like kind of creaky, like it's not
Mhm.
Christopher Lee in the Japanese version.
Yeah,
It would be weird if it was.
I feel they made it into a man for Christopher Lee.
I mean, if you've got Christopher Lee voicing a whole bunch of stuff, I can see why you'd want to, hey, well, let's have you voice this too, and this. Could you voice Clara? No. Okay.
No, I can't do Christopher Lee.
You need a little girl.
Well, that was good.
Thank you.
I just thought it was so weird that they changed, like, it's not weird that they changed this cloaked figure into Christopher Lee, because, like, if you wanted Christopher Lee to be all through your movie, that's fine. Like, this person, you never see their face. But the change from the fortune teller to the Queen of Time, it's just a weird, like, this is a weird story, but it's weird enough on its own. Why add a cosmic being into the mix?
I assume that's not from the story.
No. Yeah, I don't know why they decided to make her the Queen of Time in the American version.
Because it sounded cool, I suppose.
I suppose.
of
It
Time.
does sound cool.
Was she Queen of Time or Queen of Spades?
The password in the Japanese version was Queen of Spades, but that's just the password to get in to see her.
Oh, okay, that's not her name.
No. And then another big change. In the American version, she is told that she needs to break the giant shell of darkness, which is like an evil walnut shell that holds the queen's heart. But in the Japanese version, it's the nut from the book, the nut of Krakatuk. Like, because I remember I explained that the last time, like, there's this actual nut that they have to bite to break it open, to break the spell. I think that in the book, once they've broken it open, the princess has to eat the nut meat in order to reverse the ugly spell. Of course, she's asleep in this version, so just breaking the nut is enough to break the spell. But it's just such a weird change to go from the nut of Krakatuk. Like, that makes it so much more... It's weird, obviously. It's weird in the book, but it makes so much more sense to have it be this nut of Krakatuk. And they'd say that it's the giant shell of darkness. That's such a weird change. It's so... Like, it's such an arbitrary change, too. Like, it doesn't change the story to call it the Shell of Darkness, and the Shell of Darkness just sounds dumb.
I guess maybe for American audiences, they just throw darkness in there somewhere, and they already know, oh, that's evil or something.
Yeah.
They want to dumb it down. Maybe that's probably what it is.
I don't know.
Well, they're trying to keep it kind of generic, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, like, this movie is technically based on the book. And I feel like if somebody's watching the movie, I mean, it's not a given that they would have read the book, but I would think they would be familiar with the book. I don't know. Like, it's a weird book. A lot of people haven't read it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I just thought it was so weird that they would change the name of the nut to the Shell of Darkness and say it holds the queen's heart. Like, it's literally just a magic nut.
Well, but think about it. If someone... I can kind of see it, because if you're trying to play up a thing and you say, "Oh, the walnut of Krakatuk," like, people are gonna go, "Why is like obviously it's not the Nutcracker, but it's not going to have the same oomph." People will be like, "It's a nut. What's going on here?"
You can't tell if that's a good thing or an evil thing from the name if you've never heard of it before.
Right. It kind of takes you out of well, that's just silly. Why would this nut be a thing? I can see why, from that perspective, why they would change it. It's silly, but look at all of the stuff that studio heads have taken away because the audience won't get it, or it's not conducive. It sounds too goofy to be real. There's so much of that. I'm not surprised they changed it. And plus, look at all the other stuff that was changed. You went from rats to mice. You went from, just a fortune teller to Queen of Time.
Yeah.
Or changing Basil of Baker Street to the Great Mouse Detective.
Exactly.
Just make it very easy for people.
Philosopher's Stone to Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah, I guess. I still think it's dumb, but I guess.
Actually,
Oh no, agreed. Well, no, and but I think that it's probably
God
was
no die on
considered.
that hill.
Yeah, well, and I would imagine too. It's probably just it was considered too silly. The fact that it was a nut, and
I mean,
even
it
though
is
in the
silly,
grand,
but I feel like the giant shell of darkness is sillier than the nut of Krakatoa.
but you have
I guess
darkness in
I would
there,
argue I wouldn't argue silly. I'd just argue it's unclear. For the nut of Krakatoa, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Is that
Right?
I
what
I
is it?
mean, yes, I
Why
guess
is
so
it a
because
nut?
And
That does,
who
yeah,
the heck is Krakatoa?
I do
exactly.
feel like a lot of the changes they made, they probably did to like make it more explicitly good and evil.
Yeah.
Because like it is a little ambiguous in places in the Japanese version. I like that about it because like I noticed with the music, a lot of the music has changed to make things feel more dramatic, like so you know something bad is happening. But like with the beginning, when the I keep wanting to call him the rat catcher, the ragman. I mean, he does catch a mouse, a rat in this version. And when he's coming in the American version, there's like music playing, but it's just like eerily silent in the Japanese version. And I guess they probably are making these changes because they think that American audiences aren't going to get it.
They'd be too bored by the silence in the beginning.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe.
too, you talk about the explicit good versus evil as compared to more general. Like most kids' media in the States, and this is me generalizing, but remembering back to when I was a kid, it had to be explicitly good or evil. There couldn't be something ambiguous because you wouldn't have the lesson, and everything had to have the lesson.
Don't worry, Jonathan. We could write them a strongly worded letter.
There you go.
I bet the executives who made that decision are not even living anymore.
Well, that's dark, but you're right.
But not wrong.
They could be. Yeah, if they're alive, they're probably their 90s or something. It's like, I don't remember this movie.
Another weird change about this nut is that they changed the animation for the American version because in the Japanese version, it's literally just a nut. In the American version, it's like glowing and there's jewels all over it, and the animation is different. It's not different enough that I noticed it the first time I watched it, but watching between the two versions, you can tell that somebody else made the nut that's in the American version because it doesn't match.
Something did strike me different about the nut. Like it didn't look how I remembered it, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was.
Thought it was weird. It was just a nut.
Yeah, in
Yeah, that's what it was.
the Japanese one, it's literally just a nut. There might be like some red coloration on it, but in the American version, it's bejeweled and it looks like an object of magical significance because I guess it is in the American version.
Shell of darkness.
And this whole scene also went on quite a bit longer in the Japanese version, and it was long enough that I was like watching her, like the fortune teller slash queen of time, and I kind of think she's animated different than everything else. She almost felt more like a marionette than stop motion.
Her arms were quite different.
Yeah. After I keep wanting to say queen of time. She's not the queen of time.
I mean, she kind of is, but not explicitly the Queen of Time.
After the fortune teller, you have Clara going back and telling the kingdom what needs to be done, and then you have the mouse party / battle, and all of that is, I think, quite a bit longer than the American version. I think there's more party, there's more fighting, it's a bit more brutal. Like, I think there's one part where there's a mouse with, like, knives, like, throwing knives into one of the soldiers. And it's never, like, terrifying or graphic or anything. It's just probably slightly more brutal than they wanted for an American audience. And then another seemingly arbitrary change that I definitely liked the Japanese version better. When the queen is dying, she screams at France, "Curse you, you shall be a nutcracker forever." But in the Japanese version, at least based on the subtitles, she yells, "I cast a spell on France. Lose your limbs and become mute forever," which actually sounds like a spell. And in the American version, it sounds kind of silly when she says, "You shall be a nutcracker forever." I really liked the way it was done in the Japanese version.
Well, it certainly felt more foreboding.
Yeah. The queen seems more evil in the Japanese version, and I like her being more evil. Like, she's voiced by a comedian in the American version, and she
Yeah,
comes off
so
as silly, which is that's what they wanted. It works for what
yeah.
they wanted, but I like the more evil version.
Agreed.
And then things are kind of the same in both versions. She takes the Nutcracker back to the king and princess, and then she rejects him for being ugly, and they all off to party. And then Clara wants to take the Nutcracker back to the fortune teller / Queen of Time. In the American version, she actually goes back and talks to her again. And she says, only you can save him, and you need to look within yourself or something. I think they just reused some animation because in the Japanese version, she goes back and the fortune teller is gone.
Mhm.
I think you're right, yeah. Because I found that weird that it didn't match up.
Yeah, I don't know. And like when I first got to that part and saw how different that was, I was like, well, I know, because like I looked at how much time was left and there was still like a 10-minute discrepancy between the English and the Japanese version. And I knew there were a couple of scenes that I had read about that were going to be long. And I figured that there was going to be something that happened in those scenes that conveyed the same message. And they felt like they needed, in the American version, to have her say that she needs to look within herself and only you can save him. But then she gets that same message from the next character when she goes into the forest. She meets the puppeteer of the forest, who's the puppet master in the English version. And in the Japanese version, he gives her that line, like she needs to look within herself and only she can save him from being like. I was like, why did they change this? That's such a, because like all of his dialogue is different. In the English version, he points her to what was his name? Like I'm skipping over some of my notes, but I'm coming back. I went down a rabbit hole with this guy. The timekeeper. So he points her to the timekeeper.
Yeah, the clock guy, right?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't in the American one, right?
He was, but he was completely different.
Okay, that's why it didn't seem familiar at all.
All of this is like, it's so bizarre. In the Japanese version, the puppeteer of the forest tells her that he doesn't even remember his own name and no one in the forest remembers who they were. And as soon as he said that, I was like, okay, did they just lift this right out of Through the Looking Glass? Because in Through the Looking Glass, there's a chapter that is almost never adapted in any film or television version. I can only think of one off the top of my head that has actually adapted this chapter. And in that chapter, Alice enters a forest and gets lost and forgets who she is. She does not know who she is, and she finds a fawn. And this fawn also can't remember who he is. So they walk together and they talk, and basically this forest just gives everybody amnesia. Like, nobody can remember who they are in this forest. And then at the end of that chapter, they get out of the forest, and the fawn remembers who he is, sees that Alice is a human, and runs away terrified. So obviously none of that happened in this, but like, is that a larger trope that I'm unaware of? Like a forest where you forget who you are? Or did they just borrow that idea from Through the Looking Glass?
I know I've seen it before, but now that you mention it, where I've seen this before is actually in Once Upon a Time in Wonderland. There is an episode where there's like a forest and they're in the field and like they start to forget. And now that you mentioned that, I'm like, oh, okay, that actually makes sense now why that was there.
Interesting. I still have not seen Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, so now I'm slightly more interested to go into that series.
It was one episode, and it was like a bed of flowers. I mean, not have been an entire forest, but the concept of forgetting, I remember, was part of that.
So they've merged the chapter at the beginning of the book with the talking flowers in with the chapter of the forest with the fawn.
I don't remember if the flowers were talking. I think they were just flowers.
Oh, okay. Either way, it's interesting that they would adapt that concept, because like I said, I can think of one single adaptation that has taken that chapter. There's an Italian miniseries that did that chapter. I have never seen that chapter adapted. There are other versions that I still have not seen, but they're the obscure ones.
So that's like the Pan's son chapter in Wind in the Willows, I guess. Where
kind of.
Pretty much no one adapts that one.
I've seen a couple now, but yes.
I could be misremembering, but I think I feel like in The Hobbit there was a chapter, or some fantasy book, there was a forest that made you forget stuff, and then you wander the forest until you cease to exist, basically.
Mm. Well, it's slightly different and more dark than the Wonderland version.
Maybe it's Mirkwood. Oh, okay. Memory loss is in Mirkwood's Enchanted Forest. So yeah, it is. It's not a permanent memory loss, but you do lose your memory when you go through there. So, and it was in The Hobbit. So
Anyway, in the English version, the puppeteer tells her that if the spell is Morphea's, then the timekeeper is the only one that can help her. But in the Japanese version, he says only she can break the spell. Which again, is the same message that the Queen of Time said in the American version. So a weird change.
One reason I could think of them giving of changing it to the Queen of Time or whatever her name was is maybe to give more lines to the actress. Was it Eva Gabor who did her? I
Yeah.
can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of. They wanted to give her some more lines to say.
or she might have
Maybe.
requested
Or
the
she might have
lines
requested
too.
the lines, yeah.
Yeah.
It could be. But then also, in the Japanese version, he tells her that if she keeps going, she will come to a village where time does and does not exist, and she can ask her question to a man with one eye, who is the person he identifies as the timekeeper in the English version. Which I like that concept, and I think that is one of the things that I feel like helps make this version make more sense than the American version, because all of the fantastical stuff happens when she falls asleep in the village where time does and does not exist, which I think is a cool concept, and I feel like the American version should have kept that because I think it's a cool concept. The American version really glosses over the scene with the timekeeper. It's so much shorter.
Mm-hmm. That's why I thought he was like a total new character that I haven't seen before.
He almost was.
Yeah. They couldn't afford to pay Christopher Lee again.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 4 characters is enough for you.
And I don't think I mentioned it, but as she's walking through this forest, at least once, maybe twice, she thinks she sees her Uncle Drosselmeyer, and those scenes are completely cut out of the American version.
Yeah.
Like with the mouse prince following her, a lot of those scenes are cut out. Like there's a whole sequence of her like curling up under a tree with the Nutcracker, and the mouse prince is like sneaking up on her, like he's almost getting to her before she gets up and moves on to the place where time does and does not exist. So the whole sequence in the forest is so much longer, even before you get to the parts that they fully cut out. And then when she gets to the village where time does and does not exist, in the English version, the timekeeper knows who she is and has been waiting for her so that he can tell her that true love and sacrifice are the key to breaking the spell. And like that's basically it. That scene is very short compared to the Japanese version. In the Japanese version, he has no idea who she is, but he offers to look at the Nutcracker to like try and help her find a solution. But also he is possibly Uncle Drosselmeyer.
Yeah.
And again, this is where the dream thing comes in, because she's not fully aware of what is and is not a dream, and she thinks she sees Uncle Drosselmeyer as she's going through the forest. And then when she gets to this guy, like from a distance when he first showed up, when they said it was the place where time does and does not exist, I saw him change slightly. I was like, okay, so is he like going between phases of his life, like going from young to old? Because like he's far away, I can't tell. But then when she gets up close to him, he becomes Uncle Drosselmeyer briefly. So that was what I thought I saw from a distance. And then they have this whole conversation about love and the nature of true love and the difference between love and like, and it's a whole lot deeper than the American version. I really liked the conversation, and he's like is questioning her whether she truly loves the Nutcracker. And then this is where things completely diverge. Like they've already diverged in that this whole scene is a lot longer, but like at this point she starts crying and has a vision of herself asleep, and then of Fritz/Franz. When it first happened, I was like, are they on the moon? But I think it's supposed to be like a winter wonderland type thing. And they transform into live-action ballet dancers, and they dance together for a long number. This whole scene, definitely not in the American version. In the American version, this is where we got that, one of my favorite parts, like the really cool 2D animated sequence where they like become a butterfly and then they're fish. Like it doesn't make sense. Like none of the scene really made sense narratively. But like if you're looking at this as a dream, It's fine, whatever. I really liked that scene. I didn't realize that they had just made up that scene for the American version. Like, it's fully animated for the American version. None of that is in the Japanese version.
I totally forgot about that scene.
Yeah. That said, I like both versions because, like, I love how weird the Japanese version gets. Like, the American one got weird, and I liked how weird it was, but, like, this gets really weird, and I really like it. At this point, they transform back into stop motion and go to, in English, it's the land of happy times, which was that scene. Like, when he said that in the English version, I was like, what? Like, that seems like such a dumb change to make. And, like, I knew where they were going based on the book, and I was like, why not just call it the land of sweets? Why call it the land of happy times?
Because not everybody likes sweets, I guess.
Or maybe Candyland would sue them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, we're at the point. I could talk about that. This is the other huge thing from the book that was like, this is the translation thing.
All right, let's hear it.
Because I've always thought of it as like the land of sweets or Candyland, and I was never completely sure as to what it was, because like I've seen so many versions, and that like what it is in the book is, it kind of gets mixed up. So I decided to look at the book and see, what does the book say that this place is? In the book, in my copy of the book, it said Confectionville. And I was like, what?
Wow.
That's fantastic.
You have to see what year was your translation printed.
I should look at that. But just wait until you hear what it is in the other version.
Oh, good lord.
I was like, is it Confectionville in both? Because I already knew that the two translations were going to be different. So I flipped through my giant illustrated collection. It is Sweetmeatburg.
Sweet. What was it?
Sweet Meat Berg.
Sweet Neatburg.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's definitely a translation choice.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that's a bit of oof, I think.
I mean, I guess it probably made sense when they first translated it.
Again,
I
it's probably one of those
suppose.
that they're going to translate it in a way that is reminiscent of what the original German should be.
But to come up with
Yeah,
sweetmeat,
probably.
that doesn't, like, I guess when they talk about sweetmeats, isn't that like part of the cow?
That's sweetbreads.
I guess I actually don't know what sweet meat is, so that might be it.
Hang on, let me look it up.
Me too.
Sweetbreads is brains.
Let's all look up sweet meat.
That's probably what you're
No,
thinking
sweet meat
of.
is a type of sweet food or confectionery.
Oh, is it? Okay, well that goes to show what I know. John, what
You're
was
thinking
the
of
phrase?
sweetbreads. You're thinking of
Oh,
sweetbreads.
that's okay. That makes more sense.
Okay, a lot of like Indian desserts I've seen pictures of. So, this is like sweet meat. This is what they call sweet meat. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, both translations make sense, especially if the translations date back far enough before Candyland became a thing, or the Land of Sweets. Like, I think in the ballet it's the Land of Sweets, and that's basically what it has become. Like, everybody knows it as the Land of Sweets. But because I don't think they said a name of a land in the Japanese version, because he says they're going to the Marzipan Palace, and then I went to the American version and then remembered that they said the Land of Happy Times, and I was like, okay, I need to know what the book said. But the Marzipan Palace was also another translation thing, because in the book it's the Marchpane Castle. And I didn't know what a marchpane was, but I looked that up, and that was like the precursor to marzipan.
Oh,
So marchpane was a type of sweet, also involving almonds, that I guess eventually evolved into marzipan. It's something different than marzipan, but I guess the recipe was eventually changed enough that it became what we now know as marzipan.
cool.
Wow, there's a whole history with this movie.
Absolutely.
I know, and I was not expecting this. Like, I figured when I first started my notes, I was like, I know there's going to be differences, but there's not going to be enough that this episode is going to be that much. Like, I figured this is going to be a shorter episode than the first one we did. At this point, we're like an hour and 20 minutes into recording. It's like, I think this episode is going to be longer because there were so many little differences and then so many things to do with translations that I just kept going down rabbit holes on.
So also on Wikipedia, it's saying that marchpane was the English name for whatever that was originally, but the German name marzipan, that's what's kind of stood the test of time.
Okay.
So marchpane also appears in Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, nice.
Interesting.
Act 1, Scene 5, Line 9, if anyone's interested.
But yeah, this whole scene is so much longer in the Japanese version. They cut down so much of this.
Yeah, this was the long part, yeah.
I love the scene in the Japanese version. It is so weird. Like, I thought that the 2D animated sequence from the American version was like, somebody just wanted to be experimental with animation, but somebody did that with stop motion. Like, they just wanted to do a bunch of random stuff with stop motion, and they went all out in this scene. And I loved it. There's even, I think I mentioned before that I had read that there was a Hello Kitty cameo. This is where that
Yeah.
happens.
As soon as I
Yes.
saw that, I was like, oh, that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yay! It's a random thing too. Like everything else looks pretty like it belongs in that world, and then Hello Kitty shows up.
And that's not even the most random thing, because at some point you get a giant kaiju-sized clown.
Oh my god, that was
Oh,
that was
that was creepy. Like, I'm
That's my favorite part.
I'm not scared of I'm not scared of clowns at all. I've never been scared of clowns, but that clown, there was something about, maybe because he's so huge, and I don't know, but that creeped
metaphorically
me out.
speaking, or like within terms of what the world that we're shown, yeah.
Yeah.
And why? Like just
I
because
don't know.
kids animation or kids project or what?
It's probably maybe it's a Japanese culture thing we're missing.
Possibly.
Only
Yeah.
thing that I could think of, this is not the same at all. In the book, there is a mention of, I think, something called the sweet tooth that took a bite out of the castle. And I was like, is that supposed to be what he is? I don't know. Because, like, I assume that whatever the sweet tooth is something giant, because it could take a bite out of the castle. But, like, it's such a weird addition, but I loved the clown. I don't know why. It was so random. Because, like, I had heard that there was a clown that they cut out of the movie. Like, I didn't know the context. I had just seen somebody online talking about they'd cut a clown out of the Japanese version for the American version. I assumed that it was going to be a dance, like a ballet thing. So then when this giant kaiju clown just looms over the city, I was like, this is amazing. I love this. And like, narratively, I don't know what his point is, because, like, for most of the scene, none of what they're doing adds to the story in any way. Like, again, I don't like that they did it, but I understand why all of this was cut for the American version. Because, like, you have the whole long dance sequence, I guess, with all the candy and stuff just being experimental with animation. And then Clara and Franz get into this glass carriage pulled by glass horses, which looks cool. I really like that thing.
It was neat.
And then they're carried to heaven by this clown. I think that's what happens. I'm not 100% sure, but, like, this clown picks them up in this carriage, and it seems like he's taken them to heaven. Because then you've got this whole sequence of them, like, I guess going through heaven, because there's these clouds that they're driving over, and then all these heavenly beings. But then also there's, like, these glass fish, and there's, like, a whole undersea dance that I don't know how that fits into this. And then there's, like, dancing flowers and peacocks, and it's like, this is so weird. I love this, but it is so weird. And then things kind of start syncing up with the American version again, because they eventually do get to the Marzipan Palace, or the Palace of Happiness in the English version. And Uncle Drosselmeyer is waiting at the top of the steps for her. And then she, like, falls over, and she's like, she can't get up the stairs, and then she wakes up back in, again, this makes so much more sense for the Japanese version. She wakes up back in the forest, or the village, where time does and does not exist. And, like, I love that this dream sequence happened in this place. Like, yes, this whole thing doesn't make sense, as it makes as much sense in either version, but the fact that she is in this place where time does and does not exist, I feel like it just narratively makes more sense in the Japanese version.
I would agree. Well, you're not having to reconstruct bits and try to make things work without changing the narrative too much.
Yeah. And then in both versions, the reason that she woke up was because the Nutcracker was being stolen by the Mouse Prince. And then again, narratively, this is the same scene, but the music and dialogue and sound design are all just different enough that I much prefer the Japanese version. Like, yes, there are stakes, and it is dramatic, and I've read people talking about this movie, like, it made an impact on them as a kid watching the American version. But I feel like, at least as an adult, watching the two versions, the Japanese version just makes so much more of an emotional impact. There's just something about the way they cut it, the music choices, the dialogue. Like in the Japanese version, she calls out to the mouse prince that he should cut her to pieces instead. But I think in the American version, she says something like, take me instead. But just the way things were phrased and the way the sounds, like both music and sound effects, it just was so much better in the Japanese version.
Well, and you're not having to, change like the context of anything. You're writing it as you go.
Hmm. And then when she gets stabbed, it also seems more traumatic and impactful in the Japanese version because in the American version, like this, the narration kicks in again, and she's like explaining that she's falling and doesn't know what's happening. But in the Japanese version, she gets stabbed, and then like it becomes more fantastical again. But you also see the Nutcracker turn back into Franz, which you don't see in the American version, which I thought was an odd choice because like when the narration is happening saying that she's like falling and she doesn't know what's happening, like the Nutcracker toy is like spinning around also. But in the Japanese version, the Nutcracker turns back into Franz as soon as she's stabbed. And then I guess from here to the end, it's mostly the same. She wakes up in bed with Uncle Drosselmeyer and her aunt slash nurse.
Auntie Nursey.
Anti-nurse group.
Yeah. And the dialogue is different but roughly the same until Fritz comes in and he references the Marzipan Palace in the Japanese version. And the narration, there is no narration, so there's no narration saying that they lived happily ever after. I think the implication is still that eventually they probably will be a couple, but it's not stated outright like it is in the English version.
Right.
Maybe the American one we could say does a lot more telling than showing, and maybe the Japanese one does more showing than telling.
Definitely.
Well, and two, I mean, being that they were working off someone else's print, they had to do the different things to make everything work together.
Hmm. I think that is a big reason why I like the Japanese version more.
You like the showing.
The telling versus showing.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it as I was watching it, but you're right. There is a lot more showing rather than telling. That makes a huge difference. Because like not that the narration was bad or anything, but I really preferred the scenes without the narration.
Yeah, with the American it's very on the nose and very
Yeah.
this is what's happening.
Hmm.
Japanese one, you're supposed to come to the conclusion yourself.
Yeah.
To me, it's kind of like one thing I hate about a lot of modern comedy is explaining the joke,
Mm.
Yeah.
and that just drives me out the wall. But I'd rather have jokes where you're not explaining the punchline. You're letting it sink in, and the audience gets it. I
You
think that's
trust your
kind of-
audience to do their thing.
Yeah, it's like we both have a job here, and I think that's kind of what this reminds me of. These two versions too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, that was the Japanese version of the Nutcracker Fantasy. And I would have to say, if somebody is listening to either of these episodes and has not seen either of these, go for the Japanese one.
Absolutely.
Or if you've seen the English one, watch the Japanese version. It's so different.
Hey, John, apparently there was a version that was released in 2014 as part of Hello Kitty's 40th anniversary.
I had read that and I first thought that that's what I'd found on YouTube, but it wasn't.
Ah.
This was the version from the 70s. I think they cut out parts of it because I had read in the part where
They just showed the Hello Kitty part.
I'm not sure, but the part where I had read about the clown was them talking about removing the clown for the 2014 re-release.
Oh,
So obviously the 2014 one is inferior to the 1970s one
already.
because there's no
Of-
kaiju clown.
Of course.
Right. I mean, kaiju clowns do make everything better.
So yeah, I really liked this movie. I will definitely have to watch this again. I feel like there wasn't time to like go and tell Sarah to watch this because I almost wanted Sarah to be in on the podcast with us. It wouldn't have worked timing wise, but I need to at least make her watch this. Like she likes stop motion, so I feel like she needs to see this.
Yeah, I guess if I had to pick one I like better, it would be this one too. I'm fine with the big cuts they made. So like cutting out the big ballet sequences and the Marzipan Palace sequence, I was okay with because again, those I'm not really into the dancing and just watching this stuff happen, but all the small, like you say, like the small seconds of cuts that were here and there, and expanding on the characters of the timekeeper and when she sees Uncle Josemai in the forest and the mouse following that. Like if they kept all that, I would have been fine with the American cut.
I wonder if maybe the 2014 Japanese cut would be more closer to what you would like. Because I don't know what all the differences are. I'm not even sure if there's a way we could watch it, but if there is, it would be interesting to see what that looks like, and maybe that would be your preferred version.
We'll have our own preferred at that point.
I gotta say, just because of the traditionally for me, like I'll always pick something that's subbed over something that's dubbed, and for the reasons I gave before. But yeah, the overall experience of this, the Japanese version is, as you guys have both said, way above and beyond what we get with the American one. And there's nothing wrong with the American version.
Mm-hmm.
You do get a lot of good stuff. You get the 2D animation piece, the ballet pieces or the live ballet pieces. I could give or take. It's not something that I need to make this story good. But it is a more fulfilling story. You feel like you're getting more of it. It makes more sense, and even if you don't quite understand what's going on, it's more coherent.
Yeah, definitely. Now with the voices, like I don't know if I have a preference of subs versus dubs. Like I don't watch a ton of anime, and most of what I have watched is Studio Ghibli, and Studio Ghibli usually does really good with their dubbed versions.
Well, the Disney ones, yeah, they've done
Yeah.
really good with that, yeah.
So I like, at least for me, the ones that I've seen, it's kind of either one versus the other. It's no big deal. I'm sure there are bad dubs out there, which is why people have the argument. But for this, like if they had kept the Japanese story intact, but had the cast that they did for the American version, I think I would be okay with that. I really liked Christopher Lee. Like that was one thing that I felt like the American version did better, because I like his voice.
When has Christopher Lee ever done a bad, made a performance bad in a movie?
Yeah. Also, it's a small character, but I really liked Eva Gabor as the Queen of Time. Not that it made a huge difference for the scene, but I like her voice again, like Christopher Lee. She just has a great voice. So I did kind of miss that with the fortune teller. So I think that the cast that they got was good, but overall, the subtitled Japanese version is a better movie. I take that any day over the American version. I really liked it. Like I kind of expected when I decided to do this, I kind of expected like this would be one of those movies where it's like I'll watch it for the podcast, but it's not going to be like a favorite. And not that this is going to be like a must watch every year type favorite, but like I really liked the Japanese version. Like there's all the parts that maybe you didn't like, just the bizarre stuff. I really like the bizarre stuff.
All the Fantasia-esque parts.
Yeah, really. It is that. That is one of the things I really liked about it, was I kept getting Fantasia vibes out of so many of those scenes. And I love Fantasia.
Now it all makes sense.
So yeah, I highly recommend the Japanese version. Well, I think we have said all that there is to be said and more about this movie. We've dedicated 2 entire episodes to it.
We probably talked more about this than the English stuff. Well, it is longer too.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Well, like you said before, there's just a lot more to talk about with the translations and the pieces that are different and all that.
The editing and all, yeah.
Yeah.
The cuts.
Yeah, though there was so much more to talk about than I expected. I kind of went into watching the movie thinking that this was going to be a much shorter podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly certain that this is going to be a lot longer.
Because we really haven't like tangent much in this one either.
No, we really didn't. We had a couple, but not for very long.
Yeah.
I mean, the tangents were before we really got into stuff.
We got them out of the way. You people listening won't know about it.
Yeah, I guess that will be all for this episode. I'm sure we'll be back in the future for something else. But until then, do you guys want to let people know where they can find you if they'd like more from you? Nikki?
You can find me here on YouTube at Trivial Theater. I do random, obscure, and straight-up bad movies. Currently, I'm in the middle of a whole bunch of PSA and training video riffs, so stop by and say hi.
And Mark?
Yeah, thanks for having me, like usual. And you can check me out at my blogs, The Animation Combination at theanimationcombination.com, and My Live Action Disney Project at myliveactiondisneyproject.com.
Okay. Well, we will see you in the future for something else. Probably just as random. Thanks for listening to Every Version Ever. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My Linktree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.